trapped in a small prison or cell with someone watching you every second of the day. What if I told you you could win a cool $1 million if you manage to survive this confinement without cracking under pressure? Welcome to the Human Zoo, where we will explore just how far people are willing to go for some cash. Let's go. The film opens with a series of interviews with potential contestants, all vying for a chance to win a coveted reward in a reality show that's like a twisted version of Mr. Beast. The challenge is simple: stay in solitary confinement for as long as possible, the internet monitoring your every move. No escape, no contact with the outside world, no idea how many others are participating. Sounds fun? I guess so. We're introduced to a diverse cast of characters. We got a gym guy, an army veteran, a confused man, an elderly man desperate to pay his wife's medical bills, and of course, a group of college students all trying to prove that they have what it takes to beat evil Mr. Beast. That's right. As the interviews wrap up, the chosen few are finally ushered into a waiting room, where they're greeted by a middle-aged woman with exciting news that the show has been picked up for a second season. And as a special treat, the prize money has been doubled to $2 million. The contestants are ecstatic, but it kind of doesn't make sense, does it? How can there be a second season if the show hasn't been aired yet? Doesn't make sense, does it? Well, despite the strange facts that could be a red flag, most of the contestants are just too distracted by the money to focus on this weird fact. When money comes this easy, it usually comes with risk. This whole confinement idea is undeniably bizarre anyway. Who right in their mind would want to watch people suffer in locked up cells on the internet? Well, not me. They then meet the show's producer, Mr. Hillary May, who doesn't exactly inspire confidence either. He reads out the rules with a smile on his face and states that they could quit the game at any time by raising their hands over their heads in a cross motion, which seems rather inviting, as it clearly defines how to stop the game if one can't take it anymore. But will this really be that easy? I guess we'll see. As all contestants wait for the green light, each is visited by two guys that cover their faces and then bring them into a shower room. Why they have to cover their faces for that is not explained, but it sure would raise some alarm bells, no? I mean, look at these dudes. No offense, but, just add a black leather sofa to this scene and everything becomes a little bit sus, right?
Who's your favorite artist? Who's your favorite artist? I'll have another. Make it a double.
Who are you talking to?
Vincent, my server. He's from San Diego.
Dad, Mom thinks she's at a resort again.
Yeah, she told me.
When you'd rather not resort to a virtual resort. This is much better in real life. It matters where you stay. Looking good, babe.
Extra cheers.
Thanks, Steve. You're not from San Diego, are you? Hilton, for the stay.
Now, once in the shower room, they are forced to strip down and shower in front of the guys, which of course normal people would never do. Now, some protest, others just gladly go along with it. If you would literally do anything for money, I am sure there are easier ways to get $1 million. But only fans of this show will understand, right? Anyhow, most people would drop out right then and there for good reasons. The explanation for this sketchy approach, by the way, is that they want to ensure that no one brings in any illicit items such as phones or weapons, which is ridiculous to assume in the first place, because those people have really decided to participate here. Using anything in their cells to entertain themselves with, such as phones, would be against the rules and thus disqualified. So nobody would risk that if they applied on their own accord. 20 minutes in, and this movie already starts to fall apart. After the shower, the participants are planted again, and possibly even drugged. All we see is them waking up in their 8x8 concrete cell the next morning. None of them seem to understand how they got in here, pointing at the fact that they probably got drugged. If that's the case, then this is the moment you realize that this is no game anymore, but cold stone reality. You better find a way to escape. You could assume that this is all part of the game as well. But based on the gazillion red flags so far, you must either be desperate in need for $1 million or just extremely naive. As the participants regain consciousness, they find themselves trapped in a concrete cell with no visible entrance or exit. Their eyes widen in shock, triggered by the realization they should have paid attention to the dubious processes from before. Confusion turns into panic as they realize that they're completely cut off from the outside world, obviously not remembering what they signed up for. Now from our perspective, we can see 3 bare walls that look pretty newly constructed. They look a bit like concrete, so it might not be possible to break through them. There are certainly no windows, and the wall on the side of the camera is not visible. In any way, it looks as if for now these characters get exactly what they signed up for. Now aside from the bucket in a corner and the styrofoam box with some food in it, there is nothing in here other than this thin yoga mat. Here's a Swiss prison cell for comparison. Now of course, they know about the camera in the corner. What they don't know, however, is the fact that Mr. Hay himself is observing them as closely as anyone. It's clear that he pursues different goals than he marketed, but so far, at least in terms of the game, the participants haven't been treated much differently than before. His shower and the subsequent rugged walls. Not only does this cell look like garbage, but it also lacks natural sunlight and fresh air. But that's enough to drive anyone crazy over just a few days. Having no sanitary equipment available other than the bucket will make it soon unbearable to stay in here. Now, the risks of long-term solitary confinement are pretty well known. Severe mental stress, hallucinations, and so on. These are just a few of the horrors that could arise from being locked up with no social stimulation. But the physical risks are just as real. Without proper ventilation, the air in the cell will eventually become toxic, causing headaches and dizziness. The lack of natural light could disrupt the body's internal clock, leading to further health problems. If you do find yourself in this kind of situation, God forbid, there are a few things you can do to increase your chances of survival. Now, first and foremost, take a good look at your surroundings, right? The cell may seem impenetrable at first, but there may be hidden weaknesses that you can exploit. In this particular cell, for instance, there is a thin plaster layer between the concrete slabs. With some persistence, you may be able to scratch it off using the cap of your water bottle. Doing that outside of the camera's angle is the way to go, of course, but I would also knock at various points off the wall to test for hollow spots. This could lead to a knockback if someone is in a cell adjacent to ours, which would be pretty significant to realize. Anyway, the gym guy touches the concrete walls multiple times, making it very obvious that these are not massive concrete walls, but rather just thin drywall. There is no doubt he could just break out of here if he wanted to. Listen. I'm not sure if this was a mistake or meant to be heard. If it was, then it's strange that this guy doesn't seem to care whether these are paper walls or not. So as the minutes tick by, all of them start to wrestle with the fact that all of this is rather annoying. We literally get a 10-minute unscripted montage of the characters insulting the people behind the camera and pace around. The food they apparently get once per day is stale and disgusting, and the lack of appropriate privacy is also a nuisance to them, which is kind of ridiculous because it's what they signed up for, so this does not make sense. If it is the case that they have now all of a sudden figured out that they are captive, and this game was just a bait for them to end up here, then why are none of them doing anything against their captivity? I mean, shouting at the walls and camera will not magically have a door appear, right? The first intuitive thing anyone would do in this situation is inspect the walls, which the guy before did, and he discovered the most amazing thing ever. These are dry walls. Let's briefly go over the other major obstacles that need to be overcome here. Social deprivation, lack of privacy, the absence of nutritious food, and the worst thing, not knowing how long all of this will take. It's easy to see the problems with the former 3 points, but arguably the most difficult aspect is the fact that nobody can know how long any of this will take. There is this infamous military drill that just consists of running. No heavy load, nobody screaming into your ear, it's just running. The problem is, it is running until they tell you to stop running. Seems easy at first, but the mind eventually evolves into the enemy number one. The absence of knowing when something will come to an end makes it extremely difficult to cope with it.
So you're aware that there's a mistake, that they're taking it out.
Humans love control. Take it away from them and their minds will start to be infected with doubt. Think about it. How long could you last in here? 24 hours? 72? I don't think it matters, because everybody would likely arrive at serious doubts, thinking things like, what if I'm the winner already, but they just haven't told me yet? What if everybody else is left, enjoying some nice food and sunshine, and they just prank me, torture me for views? Once these thoughts arrive, things will get difficult to maintain. Now this simple thought experiment shows that we know next to nothing about this game. The only thing we know is that there are $2 million to be won, and to drop out you have to cross your arms above your head. But what about if you are the last one to remain?
Because I am your number one.
Are you informed and let go and given the money, or is this a gamble and just the last one to give up will receive it? As we can see, things were not thought through by any of these characters, as these are valid questions to be asked before you start going on this crazy trial. The red flags were there right from the start. Since this is the first day, most participants do alright. Many exercise, others just lay on the floor. On the second day, most are still intact as well, although not as healthy as on day one. On day 3, however, we have at least one participant, this guy right here, who actually wants to leave and thus crosses his arms above his head. The issue? Well, nothing happens. He isn't being released, proving that at least this rule is complete nonsense. And as we know, if one rule is proven to be not respected, then there is no reason to believe any other rule. $2 million? Signed up for a second season already? Sure. The good thing is, if we have realized that this is all nonsense, and that the walls are thin enough for us to just break through, then this is the right time to do just that. Staying in here any longer wouldn't make any sense. Now the remaining contestants are slowly losing their minds and start doing absurd things. One girl is counting along the walls, desperate for some kind of distraction, while another girl has decided to eat the lunchbox in a desperate attempt to stave off her hunger after days of eating meager rations. Another man has retreated into his own mind, talking nonsense to himself. As the hopelessness of their situation becomes clearer, the participants realize that this isn't a game. Empty water bottles are hurled at the camera, and some shout loudly, all but futile attempts to express their anger and frustration. They are forced to go on without enough food while the stench of their own waste fills the air, making it almost impossible for them to breathe. The effect is devastating as they start to break down, begging and pleading for mercy. And this reminds us of the term learned helplessness, where animals that are stuck in hopeless situations don't realize that their actions can relieve them from their pain and thus just stay in suffering. It's not 100% applicable to those characters, because none of them has actually tried to get out of here, which is the dumbest part of this movie. But as we have seen before, at least one character has touched the walls and revealed that it's basically just like cardboard. Now the participants are in a state of distress, crying out for help and signaling to be released from the small concrete cell. Even the jacked up guy breaks down and asks to be released. But despite their attempts to communicate their distress by making the quit sign above their heads, it seems as though their pleas are falling on deaf ears. Monks frequently go on for months without any social interactions and do pretty well. Sure, they're not trapped in a concrete cubicle trying to win $1 million, but they too strip themselves off any meaningful items to make life more uncomfortable. So the key to go through this, if one were to seriously believe all of this is for the sake of winning a game, is to practice mindfulness. Basically, meditate, exercise, sleep, and eat. Speaking of eating, some of our contestants have realized that by counting the lunchboxes, they're able to determine how many days have passed. We are at 6 boxes currently, meaning it's the 6th day. That is not too bad of a strategy actually. As mentioned before, human beings Now things continue in a weird way. The contestants are spiraling out of control, and their sanity slips gradually away like sand. The sound of a girl's voice echoes through the walls as she screams and thrashes against the floor, begging to be released from her personal hell. The Japanese contestant, too, has lost touch with reality and is now conversing with imaginary friends named Bob and who knows what else. But the worst thing is the torture that we have to endure watching this nonsense. What started out as a loosely defined game show is now only a montage of random cuts of people in concrete cubicles that we already know could be broken out of any second. Literally for an hour at this point, there was nothing but a bunch of unscripted scenes with nothing in between. I have never seen anything like this. The absence of any sort of serious escape attempt of any of those captives made this even more unbelievable to watch. Nothing is won, nothing is explained. It's just a bunch of people going crazy in cubicles. Now considering that this movie is called The Human Zoo, it might be the case that whoever produced this wanted to make a statement of some sorts. But there is no storyline, so a 100-minute film seems a bit excessive, no? Especially with 17 minutes displaying almost identical scenes. Just a bunch of people going crazy, once again. It ends without any resolution. It eventually just fades to black, leaving us back with, well, big eyes and a distant look in our eyes, looking at the floor, thinking about breakfast tomorrow, I guess. If you want to watch this movie, go ahead. If you already have, let me know in the comments what you think of it. I would be thrilled to know. With that said, my friends, thanks for watching this video. Peace out and you take care.
Tiffany Valentine was likely born sometime in the late 1950s in New Jersey, based on this line.
We're from Jersey.
Implying that both of them are. Tiffany is the older of two girls born in her family. Growing up, she was close to her mother, who had a lot of sayings about relationships that stuck with her over the years, such as, love is supposed to set you free, if a woman spends all day slaving over a hot stove for a man, the least he can do is the dishes, you can always smell it on girls who sell it, you can't put a price on love, never let a man block you from what really makes you happy, if you love somebody, set them free, and perhaps the one that would be the most relevant to her, once is a blessing, twice is a curse.
Well, that would explain your sister.
Other than these quotes, Tiffany's childhood is surprisingly mostly never mentioned, leaving the cause of her sadistic, homicidal behavior up to speculation. When you put all of her mother's quotes together, you realize that they're all kind of salty takes about relationships. It makes me wonder if Tiffany's mother left her father and attempted to raise the girls alone. The Mrs. Valentineisms come up situationally throughout the franchise, but let's try putting them in the correct order and building Tiffany's story. Once is a blessing and twice is a curse. Tiffany's parents started off well, but things declined when her younger sister was born because caring for a second child was more stressful. The least he can do is the dishes. Tiffany's mom becomes fed up when her father is not pulling his weight in household chores. You can always smell it on girls who sell it, and you can't put a price on love. Sounds like as their relationship deteriorated, Mr. Valentine turned to a prostitute. Never let a man block you from what really makes you happy, and if love somebody, set them free. Finally, she snaps and gets divorced from Tiffany's father. My guess is that it was was quite a dramatic falling out, which will help explain almost all of Tiffany's puzzling behavior later on. As far as we can tell, she's never had any platonic friends. She's hanging out alone at a nightclub in 1984, sipping a martini, when she's first approached by a man who calls her Red. He's referring to her red hair. It's not clear if this is her natural hair color, but red is her favorite color.
There's something I can do for you. Yeah, maybe there is.
They all end up at the Hotel Hackensack, where Tiffany and the blonde get busy while the man watches. She demonstrates her aggressive behavior by ripping off the woman's necklace. While she is distracted, the man yanks her off the bed and gestures a knife in her direction. Instead of cowering away, she just smiles and eggs him on. Her aggressiveness with the woman and masochism with the man is enough to make me think that Tiffany had already discovered her bloodlust prior to meeting this couple, and she was probably at that nightclub looking for prey. She was wearing a leopard pattern after all. She's identifying herself as a predator. The man locks eyes with her for a minute, and the blonde gets jealous. In an unexpected move, he stabs the blonde instead of the redhead, and invites Tiffany to play in the carnage with him. She proceeds to stab the woman 7 more times as she breaks down into cries of joy and laughter.
Wow. It's never happened like that before.
She doesn't specify exactly what she's talking about here, but it does further my suspicion that this isn't the first chapter of her crime career. The two passionately make love beside the mess they just created. She introduces herself, and when she learns his name, Charles, she's the one to suggest that he go by Chucky. He gives her a suggestion as well, to go blonde. These suggestions each become iconic elements of their respective characters. And so began one of the worst, most toxic romances I've ever fucking seen. To learn how Tiffany's childhood shaped her into a monster, the secrets behind her survival, the disturbing truth about her motherhood, and how her career as a professional poker player helps her carry out an evil plot in the future, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Horror History. There are not many characters who have the power to revitalize a franchise so many years in. After Child's Play 3 in 1991, Welcome to Horror History. There are not many characters who have the power to revitalize a franchise so many years in. After Child's Play 3 in 1991, producers Don Mancini and David Kirshner were inspired to create a fresh take for Chucky after seeing the way that Scream reinvigorated the horror genre with satire, something they talked about on the movie's official website back.
Yeah, maybe there is.
They all end up at the Hotel Hackensack, where Tiffany and the blonde get busy while the man watches. She demonstrates her aggressive behavior by ripping off the woman's necklace. While she is distracted, the man yanks her off the bed and gestures a knife in her direction. Instead of cowering away, she just smiles and eggs him on. Her aggressiveness with the woman and masochism with the man is enough to make me think that Tiffany had already discovered her bloodlust prior to meeting this couple, and she was probably at that nightclub looking for prey. She was wearing a leopard pattern after all. She's identifying herself as a predator. The man locks eyes with her for a minute, and the blonde gets jealous. In an unexpected move, he stabs the blonde instead of the redhead, and invites Tiffany to play in the carnage with him. She proceeds to stab the woman 7 more times as she breaks down into cries of joy and laughter.
Wow. It's never happened like that before.
She doesn't specify exactly what she's talking about here, but it does further my suspicion that this isn't the first chapter of her crime career. The two passionately make love beside the mess they just created. She introduces herself, and when she learns his name, Charles, she's the one to suggest that he go by Chucky. He gives her a suggestion as well, to go blonde. These suggestions each become iconic elements of their respective characters. And so began one of the Most toxic romances I've ever witnessed. To learn how Tiffany's childhood shaped her into a monster, the secrets behind her survival, the disturbing truth about her motherhood, and how her career as a professional poker player helps her carry out an evil plot in the future. Stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to horror history. There are not many characters who have the power to revitalize the franchise so many years in. After Child's Play 3 in 1991, producers Don Mancini and David Kirshner were inspired to create a fresh take on Chucky after seeing the way that Scream reinvigorated the horror genre with satire, something they talked about on the movie's official website back in the days when movie websites did was up. Of course, Chucky then became more of a romantic comedy by introducing a love interest for the supernaturally possessed doll. Enter Tiffany Valentine, or she would become known as Tiffany Red. Tiffany is a name of Greek origin, meaning manifestation of God. She would be the second character ever to be aided by the power of the voodoo god Dambella. Valentine refers to the holiday of love and romance, Valentine's Day. Tiffany's entire character has been influenced by her mom's distorted teachings about love. Although the fan base is split on the comedic approach to Chucky, which I refer to as the bride and scene arc, most would agree that Tiffany has become a fan favorite character who stuck around even after the movie sequel got into a more personal approach. From an emotional standpoint, there's a lot going on with this character. So let's take it back to her 20s to understand how she got to set up this stuff. Is referred to as a mind disorder. It's clear that she has no sense of morality, but her skill when it comes to cleaning up after herself at least keeps her from facing murder charges on account. So that being said, her disregard for other laws still got her in trouble, often landing her with jail time and a mug shot at police.
Alice Street, the church lady, bridesmaids,
At some point, the authorities distinguished her from being a common criminal and determined that mental illness was a factor. She somehow even stay out of institution. That would conclude that her life of crime due to mental illness was the direct result of her upbringing. Her mother's philosophies make it clear that there was a lot of friction between Tiffany's parents. This family social upbringing and described the mental effects that both parents can have on a child. A lot of these describe Tiffany's behavior, but for now, let's just look at behavior problems. Parental conflict has been linked to increased aggression, delinquency, and conduct problems in children. As these kids develop into adults, behavior problems in school become run-ins with the law, inability to fit in with society, and emotions. Shortly after she hooked up with Chucky, Chucky actually kills Tiffany's mother, proving that Tiff is constantly alone. Yet she stays with Chucky after this and even wants to spend more time with him. This suggests that in her adulthood, she didn't have a good relationship with her mother, which could likely be a lingering effect of parental colitis. It can affect the parent-child relationship. The quality of the relationship may be affected, as it may be difficult for parents to show warmth and affection when they're angry and upset with the other parents. I can basically go on and on about how parental quarrels may have impacted her. For example, it can cause insecurity. Tiffany gets a tattoo on her chest, a heart with a dagger and her boyfriend's name. This study in the National Library of Medicine found that young women with tattoos reported significantly lower self-esteem. I'm not saying all tattoos bad. I have a tattoo, but the difference is mine is perfect, and I had a long time to think about it. Tiffany's is a nagging emotional crutch that she got to impress a man that doesn't actually care. Tiffany also becomes a big fan of Before leaving New Jersey, Chucky and Tiffany need a vehicle, and the two look at this 1960 Pontiac Parisi. Tiffany loves the color, Coronado red, because it's her favorite color, and it can easily hide signs. When the seller discloses that the previous owners were decapitated in the car, she gets a huge smile. She gleefully slashes the seller's throat with her nail file and climbs into the driver's seat. She also takes a little taste of his order. Along with weaponizing her nail file, this is something that becomes a signature of hers. As they set off, she notices Chucky reading something about food, something that will become a very big part of life later on. They arrive at Chicago, Illinois in 1928 and get their first apartment together. She's immediately blown away and begins interior designing her head. Martha Stewart has been moving her. Charles suggests they order pizza and she because she knows exactly what they're doing. Not only are they ordering pizza, but they're also ordering pizza delivery. And the new victims are just as satiating as deep dish used to. They share a cigarette afterwards as they debate the merits of Chicago versus Jersey-style pizza. This scene also contains more potential evidence that discord from her youth is still affecting her. Another telltale sign is substance abuse, something that becomes much more likely in a high-conflict family. But at least at this point, the young couple is getting along. Like substance abuse, violence seems to be something that can come for any relationship. I think a lot of people have had that ex that just isn't really compatible with you, but when you're in bed, everything is good. For these two, it's love. And like that ex, there's a limited amount of time to experience this distraction before relationship issues are impossible to avoid. As they stop living together, frequently tension rises in the relationship. At the time of the original movie, Chucky had sleeping flights, so my theory is that they broke up, causing him to move out, but they got back together, and Chucky just kept his other apartments to use for other purposes. Besides, he's definitely not getting his deposit back, seeing as what he's done with the place. Chucky starts seeing another woman at this point. However, it's not clear if Tiffany knew about this. I don't think she did, but I'll get back to that later. On November 8th, 1988, Tiffany comes home from the grocery store with ingredients to make Chucky's favorite food, Swedish meatballs, and catches him in the other room finishing some lady with a knife. That's not an innuendo, I mean literally. But to her, stabbing Solo is just as bad as cheating. She's jealous that he's getting his fix without her, a new form of JGS that we've never explored before. She confronts him on their lack of murder dates as of late, and he just blows off the argument. It's obvious that this isn't the first time that they've separated without being able to talk out the problem. It's a symptom of one of the biggest effects of parental infighting, relationship issues. It's pretty obvious how this goes. As a kid, your brain is still developing and adapting to your environment. When kids see their parents fighting all the time, they learn that that's how you solve disputes, and they end up using the same tactics in their own personal relationships, which means toxic relationships. Instead of trying to fix the issue, she tries to get back at her boyfriend. She calls the police station and asks for Detective Mike Norris, the lead detective on the Lakeshore Strangler case, and fills him in on Charles' whereabouts. This leads to the police finding where he's kidnapped, mistress, chasing him through Chicago, and ultimately killing him inside of a toy store. After his death, Tiffany finds a ring on the mantle and believes that Chucky had been planning to propose to her. Tiffany does know that Charles had been experimenting with voodoo and keeps hope alive that he might have been able to transfer his soul out of his body before dying, so she continues to go to the ring every day. She searched for 10 years. There are rumors and urban legends of a possessed good guy doll that first appeared right after Charles' death in 1988, then again in 1990, but the alleged activity only dissipates before Tiffany can get there. She's forced to move to a mobile home in Blackport, New York. I'm guessing she moved there in 1998 or 1999, because at the time of Bride of Chucky in spring 1999, the nobody hasn't been there for She keeps the ring in the car, but nothing else. Her belief in Chucky's return is so strong that she fantasizes about having a baby. The place is decorated all over with babies. It's possible that she just has an obsession with dolls because of her legend about her boyfriend becoming a doll, but based on her past, I have a different theory. I talked about the emotional damage she received from her parents fighting with each other, but perhaps the stressful home environment also led to one of the parents abusing her. These victims tend to have their emotional development stunted. In other words, the trauma may freeze their brain's development, making them unable to grow up in certain ways. This could explain the baby dolls and pretty boys associated with many of these types of victims.
Awake! Awake, awake, awake!
childlike tantrums, and many other symptoms, some of which overlap with the psychological damage caused by fighting between parents. I'm not going to dwell on this too much because there's no evidence that she was abused. It's possible that she just likes dolls, but I wouldn't be surprised if we end up learning that her parents were a little heavy-handed with her. It seems like she's about to move on from Chucky by 1999. She starts dating a cringy golf dude named Damien, but doesn't put out for him, because in her words,
I'll kill anybody, but I'll only sleep with someone I love.
and she doesn't love him because he's not a real killer like Chuck. In 1999, she hears about another potential Chucky appearance at a military academy in Missouri. The remains of the good guy doll end up in an evidence locker nearby, so she bribes a cop named Robert Bailey to retrieve them for her, only to slit his throat with her nail file and collect the spoils. She goes home to sew the doll back together and attempts to bring it back to life with the help of her Voodoo for Dummies book. It doesn't appear to work at first. However, Damien comes over and she soon notices that the doll has moved. She gets the idea to chain Damien to the bed and striptease for both him and the doll.
Anybody lift me? Chucky will take care of you. Wouldn't you, Chucky?
This is her cue. Chucky turns his head to lock eyes with Damien, and Tiffany looks on as her ex rips out her new boyfriend's piercing and smothers him with a pillow. Bringing someone to an early grave is what started Tiffany and Chucky's relationship, and it also provides a spark for them to rekindle that relationship here. The couple are glad to see each other for a couple of minutes before they go back to being toxic as f***. It's part of a long cycle, which we see more examples of. It doesn't take long for the friction between them to start up again when Chucky makes an off-putting comment.
I always thought you were gonna let yourself go.
Nonetheless, she prepares him his favorite meal, Swedish meatballs, and explains how she never stopped wearing his ring. She is dismayed to find out that Charles had stolen the ring in order to sell it, not to propose to her. When he hysterically laughs in her face, she realizes that he hasn't changed, and probably never will. She locks him in her makeshift playpen and tells him she prefers him in this baby-like form. I think what she really likes is having control over him, since his independent behavior is what caused issues for them in the past. The bedroom is one thing, but hopefully I don't have to explain why it's not a good idea to get involved with a woman who is a control freak in all aspects of life. This is another aspect of her character that stays with her through the years. That night, she removes her ring for the first time and weeps in her bed next to Damien's lifeless body. The next day, she would look for love elsewhere, but her search and her life would be cut short.
Keep the excitement of the NBA season rolling with FanDuel. Customers get 10 times your first bet on bonus bets, which is truly a big deal for every order with FanDuel.
The next day, Tiffany gets her neighbor, Jesse Miller, to help her load the trunk containing Damien's body into the car. She asks Jesse out on a date that evening, but Jesse has a girlfriend, so Tiffany tells him to treat her right and heads off to dump Damien in the East River, which according to Buffalo native and fellow YouTube creator Bryce Edward Brown is the prime location to dump bodies in New York. I'm not sure why he knows that. On the way back, she buys a female doll about Chucky's size and puts it into the playpen with him to be his new partner to taunt him. That evening, she takes a bath and giggles as she watches the news report on her most recent string of victims before switching to Bride of Frankenstein, which she seems moved by, perhaps because of the monster's unconditional interest in the bride upon their meeting. While Tiffany is distracted, Chucky escapes his cage and pushes her TV into the bath, causing her to be electrocuted to death. This is where most people do that joke that the video is over, but I'm kind of sick of that meme, so let's just skip to the part where Chucky transfers her soul into the female doll, and she wakes up, realizes what happens, and is horrified. With both of them in doll form, Chucky wants to marry her so she can love, serve, and obey him. Hopefully I don't have to explain why it's not a good idea to get involved with someone who has those intentions. Tiffany is more interested in transferring back into a human body, but Chucky explains that to do that, they need an amulet called the Heart of Dembella, which was buried with Chucky's corpse in Hackensack, New Jersey. They come up with a plan to get Jesse to drive them to the cemetery for $1,000 under the ruse that Tiffany can't deliver the dolls because she's taking care of her friend who's mentally incapacitated. Before leaving, she gives herself a makeover to look more like her human self, which I don't get because she's planning to go back to a human form in just a couple days.
Women.
Next, there's a scene that isn't shown in any movie, but it's kind of important to talk about. Chucky and Tiffany hide Tiffany's discarded human body somewhere so that Jesse doesn't come into the trailer and discover it rotting there. This works to their advantage much later on, but we'll get to that. After finding Tiffany's note, Jesse makes an unexpected stop to pick up his girlfriend and Jade, with plans to run away and get married, which Tiffany finds romantic, but Chucky finds sickening.
Oh, that's so romantic.
I give it 6 months. Brave Scansling.
They watch as Jade's uncle, the Lockport Police Chief Warren Kincaid, tries to plant drugs in Jesse's van. So Tiffany creates a trap using nails and an airbag designed to kill Warren when he goes to investigate her giggling in the front seat. They hide the chief under the back seat before Jesse and Jade get back. They must have been able to hoist him up there due to the super strength afforded by dumbbell. When Jesse and Jade come back, they stay in a Barbie mode around humans to try to get to their destination without raising suspicion. The van immediately gets pulled over by another cop, the chief's lackey, Officer Norton. As he searches the vehicle, Tiffany kicks him in the head to prevent him from finding Warren's body, but as a result, he does find the drugs that were planted there. Wanting to keep their journey on track and their chauffeur out of prison, Chucky borrows Tiff's lighter, and she watches with delight as he uses it to ignite Officer Norton's gas tank. Jesse speeds away from the scene, which Tiffany refers to as Chucky still knowing how to show a girl a good time. Once again, all logic about the compatibility of their relationship goes out the window for her when she sees Chucky do what he does best. The two dolls giggle as Jesse and Jade bicker about what just actually happened. They stop at a small chapel in Niagara Falls to tie the knot, and Tiffany shares her longtime dream of getting married, which actually causes Chucky to stop and actually give her a real apology. I guess being back on the run from the law with her reminds him of their younger days and struck a chord with him. Every time blood spills, they seem to get a little bit closer. To add to the romance, Warren, who is somehow still alive, pops up in the back of the van and Chucky stabs him in the back to finish the job. That night, they all stay in the Honeymoon Suites Motel in Niagara, where another couple barges into Jesse and Jade's room, and Tiffany notices the woman steal Jesse's wallet. Obviously, this woman doesn't know that dolls are alive, so Tiffany ends up being the only one to see this happen, and it enrages her. I'm guessing Tiffany is not suddenly taking some kind of moral high ground, and that this is more about trying to ensure that their journey is not interrupted again. She sneaks into their room and hurls their champagne bottle at the mirror on the ceiling, causing it to shatter and slice them apart on the way down. The first example of Tiffany's very impressive throwing. Chucky is absolutely smitten after seeing this.
I love you.
He steals the ring finger of the newly deceased newlywed and uses it to propose to Tiffany for real this time, and she's brought to tears. From this point, she goes by Tiffany Ray. After realizing she has one human bodily function, her tears, the two decide to test another. Chucky believes that he doesn't need to use a rubber because he's all rubber, despite actually being made of plastic, so the two brush it off and continue their intimate moment. This moment would have dire consequences. Tiffany becomes pregnant, and because the two dolls are being kept alive by the power of voodoo, this is a voodoo pregnancy, which means everything is accelerated, and it only takes a couple of days until delivery. Despite that, they don't realize that they've just conceived a child. Later that night, they come up with a plan to transfer their souls into Jesse and Jade's bodies once they've reacquired the amulet. The next morning, they have to make a quick exit when the maid discovers the bodies of the other honeymoon couple, and Jesse and Jade are surprised by the appearance of their friend David, who shows up to help with the newfound relationship issues being caused by the murderous dolls that they're towing. When David accidentally finds Warren's decomposing remains in the back, he grabs the chief's gun and demands that they pull over, just as a passing cop recognizes Jesse's van and approaches. The change in circumstances forces Chucky and Tiffany to make themselves known by pulling out guns of their own, which I have no idea how they obtained, and to take the three humans hostage. This frightens David so much that he backs himself into oncoming traffic, so Tiffany gives Jesse the order to
Get this heap of shit moving.
After getting away, they steal an RV from an older couple by shooting them in the head so that they won't be recognized on the road. Tiffany ties up Jade and gives her a makeover, presumably preparing for the moment that she moves into Jade's body. She also makes some meatballs and cookies in the oven for her new husband, but quickly becomes enraged when Chucky makes a comment about the dishes not being clean. Jade and Jesse make a couple strategic remarks to kind of turn Tiffany and Chucky against each other. Jade edges Tiffany to retaliate after feeling underappreciated, and this starts a huge fight, which includes dish throwing, bickering, and insulting Chucky's manhood.
Take it from me, honey. Plastic is no substitute for a nice hunk of wood.
Jade uses the distraction to kick Tiffany into the oven, and the RV crashes in the ensuing chaos, conveniently right into the cemetery where they need to go. Tiffany's skin bakes inside the oven, increasing her rage even further. She busts out and attacks Jade, biting her in the ear before Jesse grabs her and throws her out the window. She's unable to get to her gun before Jesse, and he takes her as a hostage to counter Chucky, who is holding Jade at gunpoint. They come up to the grave plot of Charles Lee Ray, where the exhumation is currently in progress. When Jesse and Tiffany get there, Chucky has recovered the amulets. The two make an exchange. Jade will go back to Jesse in exchange for Chucky getting Tiffany back. But something is different about her demeanor this time around. She's really had it with Chucky. We see the difference in how Jesse and Chucky treat their women. Jade falls into Jesse's arms, but Chucky lets Tiffany fall to the ground. This allows Tiffany to see how she wants to be treated versus how she's actually treated in real time. And for her, this is the final straw. themselves tied up by Chucky, who attempts to perform the Dambella chants to possess their bodies. But before completing the ritual, Tiffany tells Chucky that she loves him and that they belong together. But while kissing him, she steals his knife and uses it to stab him in the back, before clarifying that they do belong together. They belong together in hell. The two fight, and Chucky stabs her in the chest, but she at least creates enough of a distraction for Jesse to knock Chucky down into the open grave, where he's ultimately killed once more. After the dust settles, the lead detective on the Jesse and Jane case discovers Tiffany's charred remains, and she springs to life with the very last of her energy to give birth to a child before she gives out, in a way fulfilling her mother's prophecy that love would set her free. It's not known exactly how, but Chucky and Tiffany's doll bodies end up in the hands of a movie studio rather than in another evidence locker. Tiffany's human body is still never discovered. She remains dead for another 5 years until March 18, 2004. The dolls have been adapted into animatronics, which are being used to shoot a movie called Chucky Goes Psycho, in which Tiffany helps Chucky defeat a man pretending to be Santa Claus. During a break, they're sitting in a prop room when their child, who has since been given the name Shitface, finally tracks them down and reads the inscription found on the back of the heart of Dambella, which brings both Chucky and Tiffany to life with a jolt of electricity. Tiffany's motherly instincts immediately kick in, and she asks where his parents are before realizing who he really is. As the two embrace, she calls him Sweetface, the same name that she had given to Jesse when she was hitting on him. Maybe this is not that big of a deal, but I do find it a little bit off-putting that she, time and time again, has shown no separation between romantic love and motherly love. We see it again much later, when she reunites with the doll Chucky, aka her husband, and treats him like a little baby, but we've got a lot to cover before we can even begin to unpack that. And I'm not saying it's weird for couples to use pet names, like a lot of people do that, although it is cringe, but it's more the way that Tiffany does it, in addition to her other pre-existing derangements, that makes me feel that this is just another example of Tiffany's poorly adjusted behavior. Before Sweetface can finish filling them in on where they are, the animatronic effects artist comes in to work on Tiffany, but gets a shock upon opening her up to find real human organs. Chucky tosses a length of string around the man's neck, and Tiffany helps do the honors of decapitating him with it. Once again, this act overwhelms the two of them with passion, and all past drama is forgotten as they share a kiss, which is interrupted by the sound of their kid kissing his or her pants. Come to think of it, they never did get around to the whole gender reveal party, considering they were both killed right as he was born. So when they go to check things out for themselves, the kid has no genitals, just as you would expect from a children's doll. Tiffany wants her child to be a girl, while Chucky wants a son. Chucky names the kid Glenn, and Tiffany goes with Glenda. The nomenclature was inspired by the 1953 drama film Glenn or Glenda. I'm just gonna go with Glenn for now to make things easier. The gender disagreement would be the source of a lot of confusion for the child later on, but before arguing any further, they're interrupted by Hollywood actress Jennifer Tilly, who is using this room as a secret snacking location. Tiffany is starstruck upon seeing her idol. Perhaps Miss Tilly was an inspiration to her because she looks and sounds just like Tiffany did when she had a human body. Jennifer Tilly soon realizes that the decapitated head on the ground is no movie prop, and the movie gets shut down to let the crime scene procedures begin. The frenzy of paparazzi provides a distraction for Tiffany and her boys to sneak out and stow themselves away in Jennifer Tilly's limo. Tiffany is dazzled by the sight of the Hollywood sunset, and it seems to inspire her to develop a new plan to be a part of that SoCal stardom by transferring her soul into Jennifer Tilly's body, and for Chucky to take over the body of rapper/movie producer Redman so that they can be the most powerful couple in Hollywood. Something. However, that leaves Glenn still needing a body, and Tiffany doesn't want to get pregnant anymore, so she plans to knock out Jennifer before performing the soul transfer ritual, using her as what she calls a surrogate mother, and what the rest of us call human trafficking. I think sometimes Tiffany likes to recontextualize the horrible things that she does to distract her from how horrible they are. Like earlier on, when she refers to her killing sprees with Chucky as dates. As they put their child to sleep that evening, he asks the question that they're not prepared for.
Why do you kill people?
Chucky wants his kid to grow up to become a killer, but Tiffany thinks they should set a good example now that they're parents, and she nags Chucky until he reluctantly agrees to stop killing, mostly to shut her up. Later that night, Tiffany sends Chucky into the bathroom with a cup to start the artificial insemination process, and later knocks out Redman with Mrs. Tilly's most improved actress award. She confronts and scolds Jennifer on her lack of self-respect for trying to sleep her way into a role, then immediately changes tones and asks her hero for an autograph, which of course freaks Jennifer the fuck out. Maybe that was part of the plan. Jennifer runs for it, so Tiffany once again displays her impressive cannon of an arm and nails her in the back of the head with a trophy. The two dolls drag the unconscious movie stars to bed. Once again, we see the added strength that the magic of Dambella gives to help them move these bodies, but even still...
She's fat. I can't believe it. She's not even pregnant yet.
Tiffany is the one who decorates the cake. The next morning is March 19th, and Tiffany's plan works because Jennifer wakes up thinking her battle with the 3-foot plastic superfan was all a dream. Meanwhile, Tiff reads up on kicking her addiction to committing homicide. She kind of skims through the first 8 steps, but the 9th tells her to make amends with anyone she might have harmed, so she starts by calling up Ruth Bailey, the widow of the police officer that she killed 5 years earlier. Her apology confuses and distresses Miss Bailey, but Tiffany seems oblivious, which I see as another coping mechanism to help her ignore how harmful her actions really are. In the evening, Jennifer tells Redman that she's pregnant. Again, the signs show up much faster than usual because the father is being kept alive by voodoo, thus making it a voodoo pregnancy. Redman informs her that he got a vasectomy, so he can't be the father, and adds that she can no longer be in his movie because, in his words,
She gots to be.
Tiffany overhears their conversation through the vent and is outraged and tempted to kill Redman herself, but she resists the urge and calls up a support hotline instead. The guy that she talks to is very unhelpful though and almost encourages her by saying that having a slip-up is okay because Rome wasn't built in a day. It's unclear if this is a support hotline specifically for serial killers or just a hotline for all types of addicts. At first I thought it was a hotline for all types of addicts, which would explain why he doesn't make a huge deal out of her having a slip-up, but again, I'm not sure what he's talking about with this line.
Believe you me, it was not pretty. In fact, it took me 3 hours just to clean up the mess.
I guess he could be talking about a mess he made while he was drunk or something, but it almost sounds like it actually is a serial killer hotline. Regardless, his advice encourages Tiffany to invite herself to dinner with Redman that evening. Glenn notices his mother cutting out Redman's intestines, and Tiffany is embarrassed to have broken her vow in front of him, an event that he doesn't really know how to process. The next morning, March 20th, Chucky and Tiffany watch the execution of Martha Stewart in bed when they hear Jennifer's horrified reaction about her now very visible pregnancy. Jennifer calls her assistant to vent about this scary new development, and Tiffany joins in on the call to confuse and torture them, since her voice is identical to Jennifer's. She finds Chucky tying Jennifer to the bed, and he accidentally drops a photo of him and Glenn killing the paparazzi. This sets her off because of their agreement not to kill anyone to set a good example for their child. A huge argument ensues, and it's not long before they're back on their disagreement of if they should raise a boy or a girl. There's a lot of irony here. After all of her fuss to create a good environment to raise a child by shielding him or her from violence, she ends up putting him or her in the very same environment she likely grew up in a household with 2 parents who are constantly fighting. Glenn states he or she cannot decide exactly what he or she wants to be, but knows that he or she is not a killer, and Tiffany says that this makes her proud. Chucky finds Redman's body hidden in the wardrobe, so she's got to call in a new male body for Chucky to transfer into, which would be Jennifer's limo driver, Stan.
Yeah, baby. I need your body.
I'll be right there.
Sick. It's not really clear to me why they couldn't just still use Redman, as being alive has never been a prerequisite for possessing a body before. How else would they have gotten into doll bodies in the first place? When Stan arrives, they take him prisoner as well, and Tiffany thinks they're a cute couple, as she did with Jesse and Jade. Her mother's teachings seem to have imparted this idealized version of love that her toxicity prevents her from actually achieving. The vitriol between Chucky and Tiffany continues to build as they prepare for the birth of the baby, and subsequently, the 3 soul transfer rituals. With Chucky's call upon the voodoo powers of Dembella looming, an interruption arises in the form of Jennifer Tilly's concerned personal assistant. Chucky finds a hiding spot so that he can surprise and take care of her, while Tiffany steps out of the room to grab a drink. When she comes back, she's faced with a very different situation. Glenn has now changed his identity and appearance to Glenda, in order to murder Jen's assistant with a makeshift flamethrower. Tiffany is taken aback by this psychotic new behavior, even if she did get what she wanted by Glenn choosing the female identity. She slaps Glenda in the face, telling her to wake up, and this seems to revert her back into being Glenn. Essentially, these are 2 identities living in one body. If you've seen Psycho, it helped inspire this concept, which I talk more about in the Things You Missed episode on Seed of Chucky. Before they have time to really sort this out, it's time to deliver the baby, and Tiffany serves as the midwife.
It's a boy.
Yes, we can tell by the blue blanket that you somehow have. However, to Tiffany's surprise, there's also a second twin, and this one's a girl. With 3 human bodies collected, plus 1 extra, it's time to perform the voodoo ritual. Tiffany interrupts to allow Glenda the opportunity to choose which twin she wants to inhabit, but realizes, since they have the amulet, this choice doesn't have to be permanent. The cops show up, so she rushes Chucky along to perform the ritual, and with everyone screaming at him, he snaps and backs out of the whole thing. She's unwilling to change her course. She's seen the opportunity for Hollywood stardom, and she chooses that life over an eternity as a doll and breaks up with Chucky.
It's over.
There's just one problem. You don't break up with the Chuck. He attempts to throw a knife at her, but she's saved by Stan breaking free at just the right time. Or From his point of view, just the one time. She throws the blade back at her now ex-doll, but with the police just outside and on their way upstairs, all three toys have to duck out. Tiffany and Glenn are able to hitch a ride with the ambulance and sneak into the hospital room where Jennifer Tilly is being tended to. They hide under the bed and listen in on the latest information. The police have somehow cleared her of being the killer, despite being the only witness of the effects guy's death, Redman's death, her limo driver's death, her assistant's death, and 3 other people found dead in her home, which makes no sense. But the police aren't convinced that she's mentally competent and might not let her see her newborn children. Tiffany injects something into her IV, which causes her to pass out, and once again tries to proceed with the soul transfer ritual. Like her initial spell to try to reawaken Chucky, there's something about how Tiffany performs the ritual that causes the effects to be delayed, and this allows Chucky time to get inside and lodge an axe into her head. With her dying words, she tells Glenn to be a good girl, or boy, and not to make the same mistakes that she and Chucky did.
Especially your dad.
But these aren't really her last words, obviously. As you can see, there's more time left in the video. The soul transfer takes effect and she rolls over, now in Jennifer's body. Not you. Jennifer Tilly's body. But seeing his mother get chopped up awakens something inside of Glenn, and he goes ninja mode. Tiff slides him the axe, and he uses it to finish Chucky once and for, well, once. After the deed is done, she tries to console her son, who is surely full of confusing emotions at this point. We can assume they next took the amulet to the nursery to transfer Glenn and Glenda into their human bodies. When the ritual was performed, they really did switch places. At first, it appeared that Jennifer Tilly switched into the doll body, then died immediately. But apparently she actually survived, and Tiffany held onto the doll to use Jennifer to her advantage. She put her to work, forcing her to do her taxes and play online poker, and even do voiceover work as Bonnie on Family Guy. All of this so Tiffany could live the life of luxury for years to come. Tiffany took over Jennifer Tilly's life, but she was really worried that Jennifer's close relatives would notice something was off about her behavior. So, to avoid any suspicion, she cut off contact with them. Tiffany didn't want the twins to feel lonely and without a sense of extended family, so she started organizing regular get-togethers with Jennifer's actor friends. The get-togethers included Bound co-stars Gina Gershon and Joe Pantoliano, as well as Sutton Stracke, and they became like the twins' aunts and uncles. Around this time, it was likely that the movie, Seed of Chucky, went into production, as Jennifer Tilly has a Seed of Chucky poster in her home. I'll also note that Jennifer Tilly was credited for being in Bride of Chucky, but I assume that came out before Tiffany took over. The release dates of these movies in the Chucky universe obviously doesn't align with the release dates in our world. All of this happens before the twins' 5th birthday on March 20th, 2009. Tiffany has assumed the life of Jennifer Tilly, so she's holding a big party at her Hollywood Hills mansion. As a single mother, she's hired a new nanny, Fulvia, to help look after the kids, who loves Glenn, but literally fears Glenda. Tiffany uses the doll to beat down Fulvia in an act of revenge for her disloyalty. At the time, it appeared to be just an object. It's not moving and not alive. It's possible that this was Jennifer, though, holding entirely still. Or maybe she just acquired multiple wedding bell dolls during this time. She once again writes this off as a little slit, so she's continuing to use Rome wasn't built in a day as an excuse to continue her killing career. It seems she has an understanding with Glenda, the murders of the 2 kids, to keep all of this quiet, maintaining the illusion of a perfect family for Glenn, which is what he wants more than anything. She likely continued living as a Hollywood movie star and poorly parenting her kids through the turn of the decade. At some point, she went back across the country to retrieve her car, which was left outside her old trailer in Lockport, New York. Glenn and Glenda would be 8 years old at the beginning of 2013 when Chucky next pops up. We don't know if there was an event that caused Tiff to get back together with him yet again after the dramatic breakup nearly a decade before. All we know is that Chucky somehow shows up at the front door of the woman he was seeing in 1988 right before he got killed, Sarah Pierce. It's possible that somebody helped pack and mail Chucky to Sarah's doorstep, but if that is the case, I don't think it was Tiffany that helped him. Because as I alluded to earlier, I don't think Tiffany ever knew about Sarah, and Chucky wouldn't want to put himself in a situation where Tiffany starts asking questions about who this woman actually is. There's no way she would help him once she found out. Chucky doesn't necessarily need Tiffany's help to package and mail himself. For example, in Child's Play 3, he mails himself to the military academy despite not having connected with her yet. We can only assume he tricked someone else into helping him, or he somehow does it himself. It's not really explained. Anyways, after arriving in Rhode Island, Chucky massacres the Pierce family, and the only survivors are Sarah's daughter, Nika Pierce, and granddaughter, Alice Pierce. There's a very public trial in April 2013 where the Chucky doll is used as a key piece of evidence, and Nika is blamed for the murders and ruled to be insane. Tiffany probably heard about this in the news and realized that Chucky was back and started to fall for him again because she can't resist the killer. It's an inescapable cycle for her. On April 6th or 7th, the day that Nika's trial ended, she pulls out an old trick by bribing a police officer to bring her the evidence, aka the Chucky doll, before grabbing him from behind and slashing his throat. The same thing she did to Robert Bailey 14 years before. Presumably, Chucky and Tiffany have rekindled their relationship, and Tiffany agrees to help him with his plan by mailing him to his next destination, where Chucky tricks Alice into letting him perform the chant and to take over her body. After doing so, Tiffany goes through the adoption process to become Alice's legal guardian, using the name Tiffany Valentine. Important note, she did not sign the adoption paperwork as the movie star Jennifer Tilly.
Did anyone ever tell you you look exactly like Jennifer Tilly?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Remember when I said that Chucky and Tiffany hiding Tiffany's original human body would be important later? This is why. Tiffany is an expert at disposing of human remains, so nobody ever finds her original corpse. This allows her to be Jennifer in her day-to-day life, but also Tiffany whenever it's convenient for her. If Jennifer had tried to adopt Alice, there would have been a huge spotlight on her, and if something were to happen to Alice, it wouldn't look good, considering that Miss Tilly was the sole witness of 6 murders that took place in her house in 2004. But since Tiffany is the one adopting the child, people aren't really going to be paying attention. This also goes back to what I said earlier about Tiffany not distinguishing romantic love from motherly love. From the outside, it's a random woman taking in an orphaned little girl, but from her point of view, she's adopting her lover, which is weird. After Alice's usefulness eventually runs its course, she is allegedly killed, something that Tiffany later expresses regret for. Even here, she can't fully suppress her motherly instincts. I'm assuming Tiffany was also the person to mail one duplicate Chucky to Andy Barclay's apartment 6 months later on November 8th, 2013, though it didn't end well for him. Andy! This doesn't really matter though, because by this time, Chucky has discovered a new spell on weeeee that allows him to split his soul into multiple different bodies. Tiffany would also find uses for this spell, and Chucky and Tiffany's relationship would get a whole lot more interesting. By the year 2017, Tiffany and Chucky are somehow still on good terms. Or at least they're back on good terms. Who knows how many times they broke up from 2013 to 2017. Chucky's new plan is to create an entire army of Chucky dolls using the weeeee spell. It seems that there's a limit to how many times he can replicate his soul individually, but if he can get an innocent to kill for him, he can automatically possess a massive number of dolls. Tiffany is in on this plan. She does her part by visiting the psychiatric hospital where Nika Pierce is being held in captivity on January 23rd. When Nika enters the room, Tiffany can be seen sharpening her deadly nail file, and she's all dressed up in red, her favorite color. Yes, goth was just a phase. In this scene, she's playing the role of Alice's mother, Tiffany Valentine. As far as the public record is concerned, this woman has never been married, so she doesn't go by Tiffany Ray when using this identity. From the get-go, the two don't get along, and Tiffany casually drops that Alice is dead, which devastates